The sun over Dry Creek did not shine, it interrogated. It poured down through a sky scrubbed empty of clouds, lighting every flaw in the dusty market square, every crack in the boards of the auction platform, every cruelty in the faces gathered beneath it. The heat shimmered off the packed dirt like the whole town had been set to boil. And in the center of it all stood a figure wrapped head to toe in a burlap sack. The crowd called her the Beast in the Sack. Underneath that rough cloth was a black woman of striking size and presence, broad-shouldered, full-bodied, solid in a way that spoke of strength born from endurance, not indulgence. But the sack hid all of that. It hid her skin, her curls, the curves of her arms, even half of her face, scarred long ago in a fire no one cared to remember truthfully. Only 2 cut-out holes allowed the faintest shadow of her eyes to look out on a world that had never once looked back with mercy. Her name was Mira Thorne, though no one in Dry Creek used it. Marcus Thorne strutted before her like a showman before a circus act. His suit was too tight across the belly, his hair slicked down with cheap oil, his voice loud enough to mask the rattling fear beneath his pride. "Step right up, folks. Come take a look at the creature we've been sheltering all these years. A real curiosity right here in Dry Creek." Laughter rippled through the crowd, thin, sharp, the kind drawn from people who enjoyed cruelty so long as it wasn't aimed at them. Beside him, Margaret Thorne pinched a handkerchief over her nose as though Mira carried disease. 16 years we carried this burden," Margaret announced, her voice dripping venom. "Fed her out of Christian duty, hid her away so good people wouldn't faint dead at the sight of her." The murmurs turned uglier. Some stared in morbid fascination, others sneered, a few children tossed pebbles at the platform, encouraged by adults who pretended to scold but smirked beneath their mustaches. Mira didn't flinch. She stood unmoving, shoulder square beneath the sack, refusing the humiliation of shrinking. Inside the burlap, sweat trickled down her neck, but she held still. Stillness was the only power she'd ever been allowed. Marcus thumped his cane against the boards. $10 and she's yours. Big as an ox, strong as a mule. Just keep her bagged and she won't scare your livestock. The crowd howled. A man spat in the dirt. "I wouldn't take her for free." "Look at the size of her. She did the whole farm out of house and home." "She ain't human," someone muttered. "Should have been put down years ago." Under the sack, Mira closed her eyes. She had heard it all before, every word, every slur. She had grown accustomed to expecting nothing from the world but the next blow. Then the air changed. A hush spread from the back of the crowd like a ripple moving through tall grass. Heads turned, conversations choked off, and a stillness settled heavy as a coming storm. A single black stallion stepped into view, its coat glossy enough to swallow sunlight whole, and on its back rode a man who seemed carved from the mountain range behind him, broad-chested, towering, with a long duster coat flaring around him like wings in motion. Colt Maddox, 6'6" in his boots, quiet, steady, a rancher with hands big enough to palm a horse's skull and a reputation that traveled faster than rumor. A man who rarely spoke, but when he did, other men listened if they wanted to keep their bones aligned. He brought the stallion to a halt before the platform. Marcus scrambled into a smile. "Mr. Maddox, didn't know you in town. Interested in purchasing—" "How much?" Colt's voice rolled out like distant thunder, low, heavy, certain. Marcus blinked. $10? She's for the girl," Colt said. A ripple of disbelief moved through the square. "Girl?" someone scoffed. "That ain't no girl." Colt's eyes cut to the heckler, cold, assessing, dismissive. The man shut his mouth. Marcus licked his lips. "She ain't right in the head, Mr. Maddox. Scarred up, too. You don't know what you asking." "I asked, how much?" Colt repeated. He dismounted with impossible grace for a man of his size. His boots hit the dirt with a thud that felt like a warning to anyone thinking of interfering. Marcus faltered. $10. Colt reached into his coat, pulled out a leather pouch, and set $25 on the platform. Gasps flared like sparks catching dry grass. "That's daylight robbery," Marcus sputtered. Colt placed one massive hand on Marcus's cane and snapped it in half. The crack echoed across the silent square. "Unchain her," Colt said. Marcus fumbled for the keys. The chains clattered away from her wrists and ankles, leaving her suddenly weightless, suddenly unmoored. She swayed, and Colt caught her before she fell. His arms wrapped around her with a steadiness she had never known. Warm, solid, without disgust. The crowd watched in stunned silence as Colt lifted her, lifted all of her, size and height and weight like she was meant to be carried, and turned toward his stallion. "You regret it," Marcus shouted weakly. "She's hideous, a curse." Colt didn't look back. "I've seen curses," he said, his voice carrying across the square. "None of 'em ever looked like a woman begging to be treated decent." He mounted, settled Mira in front of him, and rode away from Dry Creek without a single backward glance. Behind them, the laughter died, and for the first time in 16 years, Mira breathed air that didn't taste like confinement.
The road north of Dry Creek stretched long and empty, a ribbon of dust winding through open country. With every hoofbeat, Mira felt the town shrinking behind her, its cruelty fading into the distance, though not yet out of her bones. Colt's arms stayed firm around her, steadying her on the saddle as the stallion moved in a powerful, rhythmic gait. The burlap sack muffled the world. She could hear the wind, smell the sweat of horse and leather, but everything felt one layer removed, like she still lived behind a wall. Yet the man holding her did not treat her like weight or burden. His touch was secure but never possessive, supportive without forcing her closeness. For Mira, that alone felt foreign. In 16 years, no one had touched her without harm in mind. "Won't be long now," Colt murmured, voice rumbling like distant thunder. "You'll rest soon." Rest. The word curled through her like a hope too fragile to name. Dry Creek's outskirts gave way to rolling hills dotted with cattle. Cottonwoods lined the creek bed, their leaves whispering secrets to the wind. Far ahead, a dark timber ranch house and red barn stood solid against the horizon, neat, sturdy, built by hands that valued order over show. As the horse crested the ridge, Mira saw movement on the porch. 3 children, a tall girl, maybe 12, with dark braids and a stare sharp enough to cut through lies, and behind her, 2 boys who looked nearly identical, mischief already written across their young faces. They ran forward shouting, "Pa's back! Pa, who you got there? Is that a ghost?" "Ben," the girl hissed. "Ghosts don't need horses." Colt slowed the stallion. "Emma, Sam, Ben, back to the porch, now." They obeyed, but curiosity shimmered in their eyes. Mira's stomach clenched. Children were unpredictable. Sometimes kind, but more often reflectors of the cruelties they learned at home. She braced for questions, for fear, for mockery, but none came, only curiosity, and something else, something she didn't recognize. She realized after a moment it was neutrality, not disgust, not pity, just simple, uncolored interest. Colt slid from the saddle first. Strong hands circled her waist, lifting her down as though she weighed no more than a sack of grain instead of a full-bodied woman hidden under coarse cloth. Her feet touched earth. Her knees trembled. Colt steadied her. "You able to stand?" She nodded, barely. "Good. Let's go slow." He walked beside her, not dragging, not steering, matching his stride to hers. The children stepped aside on the porch, wide-eyed but silent as he guided Mira into the house. Inside smelled of warm bread, wood smoke, and something sweet simmering on the stove. A kitchen full of life, worn but clean, with quilts folded neatly and boots arranged by the door. This was not a place that hid people in darkness. It was a place built for living. Mira froze at the threshold, unsure if she was allowed to cross it. Colt's voice softened. "Come on in. You're welcome here." The word welcome nearly buckled her knees. Emma stepped forward, hands clasped. She said, "Pa says you're our guest. Do you want to sit?" "Guest?" The burlap rustled as Mira turned toward Colt, unsure. "You're a guest. Sit if you're tired." She lowered herself onto the nearest chair, moving slow, as though any wrong gesture might shatter the moment. Emma's gaze lingered on the burlap, curious but not unkind. "What's your name?" the girl asked softly. It took Mira a long moment to find her voice. Speaking felt like pushing sound through years of silence. "Mira," she whispered. Emma smiled. "That's a pretty name." Pretty. No one had ever used that word near her. Sam and Ben took it as permission to speak. "I'm Sam. I'm Ben. Are you hungry?" they chorused. Colt huffed a quiet laugh. "Course she's hungry. Boys, get washed. Emma, set another plate." The children scattered, leaving Mira stunned by the easy acceptance. When Emma placed a bowl of stew before her, Mira stared, unsure how to eat without exposing her face. Colt noticed, not by her movements, but by her stillness. "You take your time," he said. "Ain't nobody rushing you." Slowly, she raised the spoon under the burlap. The stew was hot, rich, seasoned with herbs she hadn't tasted since she was a child. Tears stung beneath the sack. No one snatched the bowl away. No one barked she didn't deserve it. No one watched her eat like an animal. When the plates were cleared, Colt sent the kids to their chores. Then he pulled a chair near hers, not close enough to crowd her, but near enough she felt the intention. "Mira," he said, voice low, "I ain't gonna ask what happened. Not now, not unless you ever want to tell it." Her breath quivered. "But I need to know if you're hurt or sick, if you need a doctor." "No doctor," she said too fast, too sharp. "Please." "All right, no doctor." Silence settled, gentle, not suffocating. "You keep that sack on as long as you need," he added. "Ain't nobody here gonna force you." Her hands tightened on the fabric. "But know this," Colt's voice deepened, not commanding but certain. "There ain't nothing under there that could make you unwelcome." She swallowed hard. "Why? Why did you buy me?" Colt leaned back, considering her as if the truth deserved care. "Because when I saw you standing on that platform, I didn't see a beast. I saw a woman who deserved someone finally stepping in." He waited until she met the darkness through her eye holes. "I saw a woman who deserved someone finally stepping in." A single tear slipped down her cheek inside the burlap. Something, small but unmistakable, shifted inside her, like a locked door clicking open. For the first time in 16 years, Mira allowed herself to believe one impossible thing.
The next morning, dawn crept over the Maddox ranch in soft blues and golds, brushing the fields awake with gentle light. The storm of Dry Creek felt distant out here, faded by birdsong, the creak of barn doors, and the steady rhythm of ranch life beginning anew. But inside Mira, the storm hadn't yet passed. Safety was a foreign country. She did not know the language. She woke before the children, before Colt, before the warmth of the house could seep into her bones. She sat on the edge of the narrow bed he'd prepared for her, not the corner of a floor, not a locked room, but a real bed, and tried to breathe like a free woman. The burlap sack still covered her head. Her fingers traced its frayed seams, feeling the rough threads catch against her skin. This sack had been her shield, her prison,
her identity. Without it, who was she? Without it, would anyone look at her and see a person? Her breath shook. She rose, crossed the room, and stood at the small window. Outside, the mountains rose like ancient guardians, and the pasture stretched wide, open, unjudging. A place built by nature, not by cruelty. A place where she might exist without ridicule. Maybe. The floorboard creaked behind her. "Didn't mean to startle you," Colt said from the doorway, his deep voice softened by early morning. He leaned one shoulder against the frame, arms crossed loosely, giving her space, not claiming the room. I didn't sleep much," Mira murmured beneath the burlap. "Most folks don't their first night here. New place takes getting used to." Not a question, not a probing demand, just a simple offering of understanding. He nodded toward the window. "Sunrise is something we're seeing, if you won't." Mira hesitated, then nodded. Colt stepped back, letting her move past him first. It was such a subtle thing, letting her lead, but it struck her as deeply as the first breath of fresh air outside the sack all those years ago. They stepped onto the porch. Morning mist clung to the ground, drifting low over the earth. The air was cool enough to prickle her skin through the burlap. Colt folded his arms and watched the horizon. "Kids be up soon. They'll want to show you every corner of this ranch." Mira tensed. I don't know if I can, if I should." Colt's brow lowered gently. "Mira, they like you. They don't know the stories folks in town tell. They ain't poisoned by it." She swallowed hard. "Children see everything. They see truth clearer than most adults." Footsteps pattered behind them. Emma stepped onto the porch, rubbing sleep from her eyes. She saw Mira and brightened instantly. "Good morning. We're making biscuits. Do you want to help?" Mira froze. Emma stepped closer. "Only if you want to. No pressure." No pressure. 2 words she'd never heard before arriving here. I don't know how," Mira whispered. "That's all right. I can teach you, or I can do it, or Pa can, or we can just eat fruit instead. Doesn't matter." The kindness was too much, like sunlight too bright after years underground. Mira nodded once. Emma clasped her hands in triumph. "Great! Come inside when you're ready." She darted back in, leaving Mira motionless. "I can help," Colt offered quietly. "If it's too much," Mira shook her head. She wasn't afraid." No, she wasn't. That tiny seed of awe Emma had shown, the idea that Mira could be part of something instead of hidden from it, lodged deep inside her chest. Later, inside the kitchen, the air was filled with warmth from the stove and the chatter of children. Mira hovered near the doorway, unsure where to stand. Emma took charge immediately. "You can sit here, or stand by me, or watch, or just stay close to the stove to keep warm. It's cold this morning." Mira sat at the edge of the chair, hands folded tightly. Emma started mixing dough. "Ben says he wants to draw a goat today. Sam says it'll look like a potato." "It will," Sam called from across the room. "Will not," Ben retorted. "Will too, boys," Colt warned lightly. "Argue after breakfast." The twins fell silent instantly. Mira watched the family dynamic with quiet astonishment. No screams, no blows, no fear, just ordinary noise of ordinary children with a father who guided instead of punished. Emma nudged the bowl of dough closer. "Do you want to try? Your hands look strong. Dough needs strong hands." Mira stared at her fingers. Strong. Not too big, not ugly, not monstrous. Strong. She reached out, touching the dough. It was soft, warm, malleable, like something alive. She pressed her palms into it. Emma beamed. "You're a natural." Mira's breath shivered. Something unfamiliar stirred in her chest, a small warmth she hadn't felt since she was a child, a warmth that hurt and healed at once. Colt watched from a distance, not intruding, not rescuing, just witnessing, respectfully, gratefully. And for the first time, Mira lifted her chin, not much, but enough to see Colt's eyes through the burlap holes. There was no shock there, no disgust, but only quiet admiration. A thin breath left her chest, a crack in the burlap, not literal yet, but something deeper, formed, a crack wide enough for a flicker of hope to slip through. She pressed the dough again, and for the first time in 16 years, Mira felt something she didn't have a name for yet. But Colt did.
All afternoon, clouds gathered like disagreements waiting to break. By sundown, the Bitterroot Mountains were nothing but jagged silhouettes under a sky bruised purple and black. The wind pushed through the ranch, snapping the clothesline, rattling the barn doors, making every creature restless. Inside the Maddox house, the air carried the metallic tension of a storm no one could outrun. Emma sat cross-legged by the hearth, reading aloud while the twins pretended not to listen. Colt repaired a bridle at the table, and Mira, still hooded, sat in her usual corner, hands folded, posture tense. Her body recognized storms the way soldiers recognized gunfire. Thunder meant danger. Wind meant screaming. Lightning meant locked doors and no food until someone remembered she existed. The past lived loud in storms. When the first thunderclap struck, the twins jumped. Emma squealed in surprise. Colt just looked toward the window. Mira didn't move. Inside the burlap sack, her breath caught fast and shallow. She kept her hands folded tight, knuckles trembling, trying to stay invisible. If she made no sound, made no mistake, maybe the storm would pass without swallowing her whole. Colt's voice broke the tension. "Storm's a rough one. Shouldn't last long." He wasn't talking to the kids. He was talking to her. But before she could exhale, lightning cracked white across the sky, too close, too loud. The window shook, the house seemed to flinch. Mira's body lurched before she could stop it. The sack brushed her lips as her breath hitched in ragged panic. She pressed her palms flat against the floorboards to keep herself grounded, but the memory surged fast. Margaret shouting "Devil's Child" while rain hammered the walls. Marcus laughing outside her locked door during a storm, rattling chains to watch her scream. Her pulse thundered louder than the sky. Colt saw it instantly. He rose without urgency, without alarm, just quiet certainty. He crossed the room, lowering himself to one knee so he wouldn't tower over her. "Mira," he said gently, "you're all right." She shook her head beneath the sack. I can't." Another boom, this one closer. Mira crumpled forward, arms wrapping around her chest like she had to hold herself in place or break apart completely. The children stared, wide-eyed and silent. Colt glanced at them once, one look that told them everything. Emma gathered the twins and ushered them upstairs, whispering softly. Colt waited until their footsteps faded before he spoke again. "Mira," he said, voice steady as a mountain, "I need you to come back to me, right here, right now." She gasped through the burlap. "It sounds like chains." "I know," he said quietly, "but look at me." She shook her head violently. "You'll see. You don't want to see." "Mira," his voice dropped low, gentle but firm, "let me help you." She didn't reach for him, but she didn't pull away when he moved closer either. Colt rested one large hand on the floor near her knee, not touching her, just anchoring the moment. "Breathe with me." She tried. Her breaths came ragged, uneven. "Match mine," he murmured. He inhaled slow.
exhaled slower. At first she couldn't follow. Then, barely, she did. The storm still roared, but inside her chest the rhythm shifted from panic to possibility. "Good," he whispered. "That's good." Lightning flashed again, flooding the room with white. Mira flinched so violently the burlap twisted sideways on her head. Her hands flew to steady it. Colt spoke softly. "You don't have to hide from a storm." "I do," she whispered. "You don't understand. I'm wrong. They said I was wrong." Colt's jaw tightened, not in anger at her, but at the ghosts still gripping her. They lied. His hand moved slowly, achingly slowly, toward her trembling fingers. He didn't touch her until she gave the slightest nod. Only then did his warm palm close around her shaking hand. Mira choked on a sob. "No one should ever be treated the way you were," Colt said. "But you're here now, and no storm, no man will ever lock you away again." Her shoulders curled inward. The sack brushed his forearm. "I want," she whispered. "I want it off." Colt stilled. "You sure?" Lightning flashed. Thunder cracked. Her voice shook, but it came. "Yes." Colt didn't move to remove it for her. He simply said, "Then take your time." Her fingers found the knot, pulled once, twice. The sack loosened. Her breath trembled. She lifted the burlap, slowly, painfully, until her face emerged in the dim firelight. Brown skin, soft, full cheeks. One side smooth, the other marked by old burns, puckered and twisted from a fire she never started. Her curls fell in uneven spirals around her face. She braced herself for recoil, for fear or revulsion. Colt didn't look away, not for a heartbeat. He lifted his hand, slow enough she could retreat if she wished, and rested his palm against her scarred cheek. "Mira," he whispered, voice thick, "ain't a thing about you I'd turn from." Her breath broke, not in fear, in relief so sharp it almost hurt. Outside, thunder rolled. Inside, something inside Mira, something small and hidden and long-starved, finally exhaled. For the first time in 16 years, she believed that the sack had lied. She was not a beast. She was a woman who had survived long enough to be seen.
Morning broke soft and golden over the Maddox ranch, as if the land itself sensed something sacred had shifted during the night. Mist clung low to the fields, drifting like half-formed dreams across the pasture. Birds shook water from their wings and began calling to each other in bright, clear melodies. Inside the house, Mira stood before the small mirror in her room, her face uncovered. Her curls, released from years of confinement, framed her cheeks in unruly spirals. One side of her face bore the smooth lines of the woman she might have grown into. The other held the burn scars, wreathed, textured, shaped by trauma, but softened over the years into something that looked strangely resolute, like evidence carved into her skin that she had survived what tried to destroy her. She touched the unscarred cheek first. Then, slowly, her fingers traced the marked side. The sensation brought a single, steady truth into her mind. This face is mine. Not Dry Creek's. Not her parents'. Not the sack's. Hers. A faint sound drifted from below. The twins arguing about who got to ride the mule today. Emma shushing them. Colt's deep voice telling someone to use their inside voice before they lose their breakfast privileges. Mira breathed out a shaky laugh. This was what a home sounded like.
She made her way downstairs. The wooden steps creaked softly under her weight, but no part of her expected punishment for the noise. That alone felt like a miracle. In the kitchen, Colt was pouring coffee. He turned at the sound of her steps. The mug paused halfway to his lips. His breath hitched almost imperceptibly, but not from shock, not from discomfort, from awe. "Morning," he said, voice suddenly quiet. Emma spun around, her braid whipping her shoulder. Her face lit up. "Mira, your hair is beautiful." Mira's hand instinctively flew to the curls framing her face. "It's just hair." "No," Emma insisted, stepping toward her. "It's pretty." Pretty. Emma said it like it was fact, not compliment. The twins stared too, wide-eyed, curious, not cruel. Ben whispered loudly, "She looks like a real mama now." Sam elbowed him hard. "Sorry," Ben mumbled, eyes darting to her scarred cheek. "I mean, it's nice. Your face, it's nice." The simplicity nearly brought Mira to tears. Colt set his mug down and stepped closer, not crowding her, not claiming the moment, but joining it with the gravity of someone who understood how monumental it was. "You look like yourself," he said, "and that's worth more than anything." Heat pooled behind her eyes. She blinked hard. Before she could respond, the twins bolted toward the door, shouting about the goats escaping. Colt sighed. "If the barn's still standing by noon, it'll be a miracle." He moved to follow them, but paused beside Mira. "You don't have to hide any more. Not here." Her throat tightened, but she managed a small nod. Outside, sunlight spilled across the land. Mira stepped onto the porch behind him, letting the morning air wash over her bare face. The breeze kissed her scars without judgment. The world had always been wide, but today, for the first time, she felt allowed to exist inside it. Emma nudged her arm. "Want to come see the chicks? They're learning to hop." Mira hesitated. Habit, fear, the familiar pull to remain unseen. Then she breathed in deep, stepped forward. "All right," she said softly. Emma beamed and grabbed her hand, not pulling, just guiding. They crossed the yard to the chicken coop. Chicks scattered in fluffy panic, their tiny feet skittering across the dirt. Ben was arguing with a rooster. Sam attempted a rescue mission. Chaos. Ordinary chaos. Emma giggled. "They're ridiculous." Mira knelt, the hem of her borrowed dress touching the earth. A chick hopped near her shoe and peered up with bead-black eyes. Slowly she extended her hand. It climbed onto her palm without fear. Her breath caught. Emma whispered, "See, even the animals know you're gentle." No one had ever called her gentle. Behind them, Colt walked up with a handful of hay. He paused when he saw her kneeling in the sunlight, curls glowing, face unhidden, smile small and uncertain, but real. He swallowed hard. "You look right at home," he said quietly. She didn't turn immediately. Instead, she watched the chick in her hand, watched how it trusted her without hesitation, without checking for flaws or scars. When she finally looked up at Colt, the morning light reflected in her eyes. I think I might be," she said. His face softened, more emotion than she'd ever seen him show. Not pity, not longing, something steadier, something that looked a lot like respect and hope. Emma ran off to chase her brothers. Colt stepped closer, hands in his pockets, like he didn't trust himself to reach for her. "Take your time with this," he said softly, "however long you need." Mira studied him. his steady posture, his quiet strength, the way he didn't flinch at her scars or shrink from her sighs, the way he looked at her like a person with a future, not a burden from the past. "I'm not hiding," she said quietly, surprising even herself. Colt's lips curved. "No," he agreed. "You're living." Mira rose from the ground, letting the sunlight wrap around her like a promise. The sack that once smothered her lay abandoned in a trunk in the barn, not forgotten, but no longer needed. She walked toward Colt, toward the children, toward the day waiting to unfold. And for the first time in her life, Mira Torn stepped into her own light without flinching. Not a beast, not a burden, just a woman finally allowed to be seen.